Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Resident Evil 0. In the last part, we finished off exploring the facility basement, fighting off a couple of eliminators in the process. And now we're in a new wing of the training facility, right off of where we first found the grenade launcher. In specific, we're in this little bar room, which I find absurdly cozy. The lighting here I just find comfortable, even though it's in the middle of the zombie-ridden building. One of two in this area, even. Technically three, I guess, at this point. So, I'm going to take a moment to organize my inventory here, because my inventory is actually getting a little too full for my comfort at this point. In specific, I want an extra slot on Rebecca to pick everything up that's coming up here in a moment. Otherwise, though, you may have noticed this room very predominantly features a piano, and if you know Resident Evil and pianos, that's part of a puzzle in some form. But in specific, we want to play it as Billy. The piano is covered with dust, but it looks playable. Play it? Sure. So the reason we play that as Billy is because if you play it as Rebecca, she plays it off-tune and the door will not open, which is a reference to the fact that she's also the one that plays the piano for Chris in that puzzle in Resident Evil 1. So we now need to send her in here and pick up the couple of items in here. Namely, there's some Magnum ammo, which is the reason I cleared up that extra inventory space. But also over here, there's a bottle, but more importantly, a battery. The exact battery type from Resident Evil 1, even if memory serves. Take it? Sure. So now, whoever you send in here to get the battery is trapped in here. The thing is, if you send Rebecca in here, though, Billy can just play the piano again and solve the puzzle permanently. The whole thing is you're not meant to send in the same person who could open the door in there, and I think that's a nice little twist on how the piano puzzles usually work in the other games, if they exist at all. I think this is a fun little turnaround to things. Again, Resident Evil 0 really has some really shining gems in it when it comes to puzzle designs or just little scenes and concepts. But then, it's the things around it that sometimes make it fall apart, as I've said a couple times before. In fact, if anything, I hope I'm not saying that too much, because I get paranoid about that kind of stuff sometimes. But also, the way I record these videos, sometimes I forget what I said, and then I just repeat myself in ways that, admittedly, would probably irritate me if I was watching. And if that's the case, I'm sorry about that. Really. So now that we've done that, our next destination is actually the other door in this hallway that we fought the leech zombie in last time. In fact, there's the leeches there, like I've said before. If you kill a leech zombie in a room, if you come back in there after the fact, leeches will just be in there normally. Usually they're not a threat, but there's sometimes they might be. So this hallway here has two doors. One we need to go into for progress, but the other door's at the far end. And in that room, there's also a pretty good amount of items. Even on normal mode, there's a red herb, green herb, first aid spray, handgun ammo, and bottles for Molotovs. But I'm not entering that room to get the stuff despite it all being pretty useful. Because the moment you leave that room, the hallway before that room and this one now will have a leech zombie in it, a mimicry Marcus. And I'm trying to avoid spawning that in so I don't use all my Molotovs in this one area. So, we got the vice handle at the end of last part just about, and thankfully we can use it right near where we found it. Over here, there's a vice gripping a tablet without a handle. So, do the 1 + 1 math. That sounded way too heavy for the size of that thing, but I guess it probably is made of pure stone, isn't it? So if there's one thing I could recommend, if you want to get the healing items that are in that room on the other end of this hallway, take the items we're grabbing here, go over to the main hall, and then drop everything, even your weapons, and then try to go there, get all the items, and then run around the mimicry Marcus if you can. Because I can certainly see a lot of players having situations where they're lower on health items and they're going to need those 2 full heals at some point. I would probably even have benefited from them, but oh well. So I'm technically done in this area, though I do backtrack here in a moment anyway, because I wanted those shotgun shells, but I was really low on inventory space, and the tablet here is a much more important item. But yeah, leeches, not much of a threat individually. I think they can try to gang up on you like the roaches in the sewer in Resident Evil 2, but even just running past them can smush them pretty quickly, so they don't really get much of a chance to be a threat, really. So my goal right now is to go use that tablet in the observatory so I can get it out of my inventory and go back and get those shotgun shells. You could theoretically wait until you get the third tablet to place them both in, but I'd rather free up the inventory slots and have a more specific inventory before I go do the third tablet anyway, so I'm gonna wait on that. We're pretty close to it all the same, though. Honestly, the first tablet takes the longest to get to the three of them. The next two fly by pretty quickly once you get access to that hallway after coming back from the facility basement. It's always really the first key hunt in a Resident Evil that takes a while. Like, in this one, it's the statues. In Resi 1, it's the medallions. In Resi 2, it's the suit keys for the sewers. Once you get past those, usually the rest of the key hunts fly by pretty quickly. And honestly, I kind of like that because it makes the game feel like it's going at an accelerating pace in a way. So now I'm gonna speed up back through here, rejoin Rebecca down here at the bottom of the stairs, go get those shotgun shells, and afterwards we're gonna get back to the main hall, and I'm gonna do some inventory remanagement that I'm gonna speed up past as well, namely combining, I think, the Magnum bullets that I've found already thus far with the ones I have, just to have them ready for when I eventually find the Magnum. And don't worry about missing the Magnum, by the way. You're gonna find that in the story pretty easily. It's the ammo along the way you want to pick up because there's really not much of it in there. Alright, now that we've done that, time to take care of a door I've been able to go through for a while, but I just haven't yet. The front door. This unlocked as soon as we finished the conference room puzzle several parts back. But you couldn't really do anything out here besides, I think, pick up an herb or two, if even, because we needed the battery from the bar we got at the start of this part. Also, if you're like me and think, oh, hey, we left the building, we can totally leave now, right? Shorter ending, maybe? The bridge to the front's completely destroyed. There's no way out of here easily. So we want to head over here past this elevator that is currently not being powered. There's no response. Looks like it's not getting any power, which is why we went and got that battery. I guess theoretically, this is probably the first of the tablets you could find. It's just that you wouldn't be able to get it for a long while yet. Also, for some reason, I always think that elevator will activate automatically. No, you do need to investigate the thing you put the battery into immediately after putting it in there in order to make the elevator move. So, fun fact, you can actually see this crate much earlier in the game. It's in the same room that we sent Rebecca through back in, I believe that was part 4. Between where we first fought the plague crawlers and the room we fought the millipede in, the little outdoors fountain area that the crows could attack you in. But we couldn't send it down here until now. And thus we need to push it. As usual with Billy, you may have noticed earlier, the third tablet is in this area on top of a pillar. Unfortunately, you can't, like, throw a rock at it to just knock it down. We need to... It's a video game, so we need to play by the video game's rules. We need to push the crate over there slowly. Crate pushing puzzles take a while in Resident Evil, usually, but honestly, at least they make up for it by usually being pretty easy. There's only really 1 or 2 of them that's actually kind of a thinker, and one of them is later in this very game, even. If anything, I think they're more in here for tradition at this point. Considering they've been around since that absurdly long hallway near the shark room in the original Resident Evil. I remember when I first played Resident Evil 1, which I played when I was relatively young, I was thinking, like, what's Chris gotta be thinking right now as I'm pushing the box? And the older I get, the more I think, he's probably thinking if he left the oven on. Especially Resident Evil 1 original Chris, not so much remake Chris. Alright, there we go, in position. Climb up here, and even though that looks out of range, you can just barely grab it. There's something there. The Discipline Tablet. Come on. That's all 3, so now we're ready to move on. I do recommend taking this moment to reorganize your inventory a little bit. Not that you're coming up on like a big point of no return, no. It's just you really want to be prepared for what's coming up. I would recommend bringing in your shotgun and any shotgun ammo you have. If you don't have any shotgun ammo, the grenade launcher and any ammo you have for that is good enough. But try to have shotgun ammo is the best way I'll put it. As it is, from memory, my inventory's largely ready, with the amount of shotgun ammo I have. But there's one item from the main hall at the moment I do need to bring with me. It's one I made special note that you should have grabbed after leaving the Ecliptic Express and kept with you in some form. Otherwise, you have to backtrack all the way back to where we first left the Ecliptic Express, and that just takes a while. In specific, we finally need the hook shot again. Why? We'll find out later. But just grab it now to save yourself a backtrack. It's an annoying one if you do. For right now, time for one more trek through the large hallway where we fought the millipede boss fight. Are you getting sick of that room, by the way? Because we really do go through it a lot. Admittedly, some of that is due to my own, I'm not going to say inexperience, but lack of routing knowledge in Resident Evil 0 compared to even Code Veronica. Because, admittedly, if there's one thing I can give Code Veronica's level design, even though I hate how much it's long stretches that lead to one item, it makes routing that game very easy because there's only so many ways you can go down that one pathway. The one thing I can say can at least save you in some cases with the AI falling behind you, by the way, is that if you take very wide routes so they have to fall behind a certain way, as long as you investigate a door before a character gets hit, they don't take damage. Even if they're in the middle of an attack animation, so that the loading doors can come in handy like that. Alright though, here we are back at the observatory. Let's put in that final tablet and complete the 3 principles of the facility. But now, as is typical for this series on the GameCube, time for our disc swap. Resident Evil 0, just like Remake, Resi 4, Code Veronica, and I think even most of the PS1 games ported to the GameCube is on 2 discs. Thankfully, the swap, while abrupt, doesn't take long. So now the entire observatory tower has lowered a floor. This does mean that the door we entered from no longer leads to the big hall we fought the millipede boss. In fact, now it leads to that one area that was up the ladder from where we first got the black statue. And that's a pretty dangerous room to go back to at this point, because instead of there being zombies there's now 2 to 3 eliminators. Honestly, this is one of the better placed disc swaps in the series when it comes to a singular adventure that's split into 2 discs and not, say, a difference of which character you're playing as, like it was in Resi 2. It's not like Resident Evil Code Veronica, where it's maybe like the last third of the game, or Remake, or it's more like the last fifth, if even. There's still a good amount of the game left. Mind, in this LP, some of that is extended because of the backtracks I do to bring items forward with me, but we'll start talking about that, next part or so. So welcome to the Training Facilities Church. The door is locked, but you can direct your partner character onto that particular panel to unlock it. I recommend doing this with Rebecca, so you can bring Billy into the church, because he's better suited for what's coming up here. Now, I pretty much know the reason why, but this room's always made me laugh because it reminds me of a very specific room in the first Onimusha game. Mostly because what happens in that room is a very similar event to what happens here. Church is pretty pretty, though. Let's see what's got up at the altar. There's an altar here. Despite its aura of divinity, you can't help but sense something ominous about it. There is no god here. Our actual destination for right now in the church is this little office off to the side, which is a save room. If I was as confident in my abilities in this game as I am in, like, Resi 2 or 1... this would probably be where I actually would do my first save. But I don't think I'll ever be that confident to get into Disc 2 without saving. Probably not. There are some ammo in here depending on which weapon you bring in, and the shotgun shells are what really matter to me for what's about to happen. Our next boss is the rather uncreatively named Infected Bat. This thing can be really annoying with most weapons outside of the shotgun because it flies around at a pretty fast speed. Attack-wise, it can attack you from basically any distance, too. It can try to just hit you with its body, but it can swipe at you with its claws. It can pick you up and drop you, which does the most damage, I think. And it can also summon in some smaller bats. If you get really close, you can kill in about 6, 7 shotgun shots, ideally. The grenade launcher is also really good here, but it travels slower and has much less spread, so it's just a worse weapon, I think. Theoretically, the best weapon to bring in here in that regard, I guess, would be the hunting gun. But I left that in that room where we first got the black statue, which also now has eliminators in it, by the way, from memory. So, not really worth it. Not that bad of a boss as long as you bring in the shotgun ammo needed for it, though. So, at this point, the church is cleared out, and the fun thing, the door is now permanently unlocked. I don't know why that works the way it does, but it does. So now we can actually bring Rebecca in here. So the reason we had to enter the church at all, by the way, if you walk around the church, you'll find an elevator that has no power. So we need to find the power switch to turn it on, which in this case happens to be behind the church. And thus we need to enter the church now that it's cleared of the bats. And now in front of the doorway, there's this particular camera angle. It looks like you could use something to get up there. Hence why we needed the hook shot again. If you didn't get it before this, you now need to backtrack through the church, the room before the church, the observatory, the little balcony area now filled with eliminators, and either direction from there to reach the main hall and then back to the Ecliptic Express where it will likely be awaiting you. I guess, theoretically, the best place to place down the hook shot to wait to grab it for later would probably be in the millipede room if you send Rebecca up to where we first fought the plague crawlers anyway, like when we first got to the training facility. Because then you could just drop it there, it'll stay there through the millipede fight, past the plague crawlers, and you can just place it in front of the door even, so that you have it there waiting and ready for when you need it right about now. Because you can pick it up right before the disc swap in that case. So now we're on the roof, which there's thankfully a ladder down from, and we can just make our way down into the garden behind the church. Now something I forget exactly where I read, and I hope I can find the source again for this. The game is currently 2 discs, but apparently at one point in development I read it was going to be closer to 3. But so they had to have people from Nintendo come in to apparently help them with compression and figuring out how to get stuff working on that angle. But there's also a chance when I read that could have been for remake. Second Pass Me will hopefully be listing any corrections for what I'm saying right now. Because I remember reading that between the time I started the LP and now, but I can't find it again. So either I've slid into another universe where that wasn't the case in the time since, even though I don't believe in sliders, or I've just checked the wrong sources again and again. Either way, now that we've powered up that elevator, we can go grab Billy and head down that elevator. Wherein I will do easily my worst set of backtracking in the game, technically, but I'll talk more about that in a few moments, if not early next part. I forget the exact placement of that editing-wise. My own stubbornness when it comes to certain things with how I like to play Resident Evil definitely comes into its worst effect here in Disc 2 pretty regularly. And that is mostly my fault, I will say that. The way I like to play these games runs pretty counter to how Resident Evil 0 works inventory system-wise. I will fully admit that. Which is part of the reason why I admire the qualities this game has, but it's ultimately not my favorite. It's not for me. Awkward elevator ride. Part of me kind of wishes they would play a classic Resident Evil track here in the form of elevator music, like the Resi 1 save room theme or the Resi 2 B scenario credits theme. I get why they don't, but I always feel like those kind of jokes, as minor as they are pretty much universally hits, even if it would be atmospherically or tonally not exactly the most fitting. Oh, that's kind of a bad stutter. Just to note it, I am playing this game off of Dolphin and recording it with OBS for this LP. So there's a couple moments like that throughout, probably caused by the settings I have Dolphin up to try and make it look better, which at times causes some iffy stuff to happen, but oh well. Now, even though it's not the final area in the game, welcome to this game's lab. And in particular, welcome to the lab's little library area. We're gonna be in this room a good amount during this section of the game. And over here, there's a hole in the ceiling that, based on this camera angle, you once again need the hookshot to get up. Great. But before that, let's read this note. Marcus's diary, too. This page has been torn out. Trouble is unlikely, but I closed my babies up in a special capsule. But it won't be safe if I hold on to it myself. I'll hide it in that place. To hide a leaf, put it in a forest. To open the capsule, the necessary stripping agent is necessary. No way Spencer's lackeys could figure out how to make it. So we've heard about a stripping agent before. That was in the document I mentioned last time that I didn't pick up because I don't enter the room it's in. But it's important to know that. In fact, if anything, it's the main reason you'd want to enter that room on a fresh playthrough. Because that is very key information. Albeit, it's not super hard to figure out. For reasons we'll talk about more next time. But with that, as I mysteriously walk backwards, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 9, I'm falling victim to my brain demons, and we're backtracking all the way back to the main hall, back and forth, to ferry items back and forth to this room in specific. See you guys then.